Hello Moto GP fans. Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Michele, Pirro and Márquez completed an intensive winter test day on the Ducati V2 in Valencia, a session that mixed focused development work, low temperatures, and the unfortunate crash that sidelined Fermín Aldeguer. Francesco Bagnaia's 2025 season was a study in contrasts, flashes of his old, heartbreaking brilliance at Motegi and Sepang, yet a string of weekends where the GP25 simply wouldn't let him do what made him great. The core issue, Bagnaia says, was losing the ability to brake on the lean, a narrow technical deficit with huge sporting consequences. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. The test took place in cool conditions, around 15 degrees Celsius, but Pirro emphasized the surface quality helped the program progress smoothly. Lower temperatures change tire behavior and demand careful warm-up routines, yet the crew managed mileage and setup work efficiently. That better-than-expected asphalt allowed engineers to collect meaningful data on suspension and chassis responses that matter most when you're evaluating a new engine concept in winter conditions. The track was in good condition. A competent surface in cold weather isn't glamorous, but it's precisely what turns a test day from noisy trial and error into real development progress. The day was overshadowed by Fermín Aldeguer's morning crash, which Pirro described without hiding its severity. The incident interrupted the schedule and rightly shifted immediate focus to medical care and rider welfare. For teams, these moments are sobering. Development takes a back seat to ensuring the rider gets rapid evaluation, stabilization, and specialist treatment. The paddock responded with concern and support, and the test program adjusted around the medical priorities. It was a bad crash. Short, blunt, and human. That line set the tone for the rest of the day, where safety and recovery became the central story beyond lap times. Technically, Pirro explained why Ducati is using the V2 in certain winter runs, on tight technical tracks with constrained exhaust and runoff areas. The full 1,000 cubic centimeters packages can produce excessive speeds that complicate testing. The V2 is presented as a pragmatic compromise, still representative of chassis dynamics and rider feel, but kinder in areas where extremes would be unsafe or unhelpful. For engineers, the priority is not raw power gains right now, but a balanced baseline that reveals handling and setup pathways. The V2 is the best compromise between performance and safety. That trade-off lets the team chase predictable feedback rather than chasing peak numbers that may not translate into raceable progress at this stage. Márquez was busy all day. Pirro noted they did laps together, and that Marc was clearly enjoying the process. The bike in question was described as close to a plain but effective test mule, standard layout with targeted changes in exhaust, footboards, and partial controls to tune feel. With more suspension tweaks on the agenda and an Insta360 ready to capture tomorrow's work, Pirro hinted the next day would build on today's foundations and could produce even more useful footage and telemetry. Marc's bike is almost ready and tomorrow will be truly incredible. That's not hype so much as a promise of continued, focused running, and an invitation to expect more substance. Valencia's V2 day delivered useful development, a serious crash that redirected priorities, and encouraging words from Pirro about the bike and Márquez's momentum. The narrative is simple: careful testing, measured changes, and a focus on rider safety and usable feedback. If tomorrow's session lives up to Pirro's line, the team should leave Valencia with clearer answers and a stronger platform for the early season run. In elite MotoGP, braking isn't just about how hard you squeeze the lever, it's where and how you stop the bike. Braking on lean angle lets a rider scrub more speed while already angled into corner entry, enabling later braking points, tighter lines, and the ability to set up overtakes or defend under pressure. Bagnaia explains that his straight-line deceleration remained competitive, but the crucial margin came from what he could do while already leaning the bike, and that margin vanished for large parts of 2025. Without that tool, everything that used to come naturally, aggressive entries, forcing a slide, and then using that slide to rotate the bike, became risky or impossible. Straight-line braking was very similar. But the biggest difference was when I was entering the corner. Before, I had the chance to stop the bike with lean angle. That missing capability isn't cosmetic. It changes corner geometry, tire load cycles, and a rider's whole mental model of how to attack the lap. For Bagnaia, losing it turned familiar corners into tactical minefields. The problem compounded in traffic and in race scenarios. When you're in another rider's slipstream, straight-line braking advantage disappears. You can't retroactively create extra stopping room. That's where braking on lean becomes priceless. It allows you to brake later and deeper while already committed into the turn. Bagnaia described the brutal arithmetic succinctly. Once that tool was gone, following became a trap. Instead of turning slipstream opportunities into passes, he often lost places or had to back out, which cost time, positions, and momentum across entire race weekends. When you're following others, the slipstream is not helping you to stop the bike. And then, if you're not able to stop with lean angle, you're fked, so this was my problem. In short, the missing technique turned overtaking windows into liabilities. That explains why Bagnaia's racekraft, normally one of his strengths, felt blunted and cautious at times. Bagnaia also flagged symptomology that engineers can't ignore: exit shaking and unpredictable chassis behavior. When a bike oscillates on corner exit, the rider's confidence to push into lean braking evaporates. Engineers then chase stability, softer settings, different rear geometry, or electronic compromises that can restore feel but often blunt ultimate cornering aggression. Bagnaia admitted he could control slides and force reductions in speed in prior seasons. In 2025, those microsaves were often unavailable because the GP25's handling window had moved away from his preferred inputs. Last year I was able to brake with more lean angle. I was controlling a lot of slide and I was able to force a lot in the last part to reduce the speed. The consequence is a vicious loop. Handling quirks reduce leaning confidence. That reduces braking on lean capability. That forces conservative setups that in turn slow lap times. Exactly the spiral Bagnaia experienced. The results tell the story. 2 sprints and 2 GP wins show the raw talent and occasional perfect setups. But 8 non-scores in the final 10 races sealed a disappointing 5th in the standings. Bagnaia's season became a ledger of what-ifs, weekends where a single restored braking window could have flipped a DNF into a podium. Fixing the issue is both technical and human. Chassis tweaks, electronic mapping, tire choices, and the rider's willingness to retrain entry points all play a part. The key for Bagnaia and Ducati is turning those Motegi-style highs into repeatable performance rather than isolated miracles. All things that this season I usually wasn't able to do. That single line captures the season's frustration, not a lack of skill, but a missing ability to consistently apply it, and the urgent task for the winter is to recover that tool. Francesco Bagnaia's 2025 campaign was defined by the loss of a deceptively simple capability, braking on lean, and by how that weakness cascaded into setup compromises, lost overtakes, and marathon-long frustration. The good news for Ducati and Bagnaia is that the problem is identifiable and addressable. Engineers can tune, riders can adapt, and winter testing offers the laboratory to rebuild confidence. The challenge will be making those fixes repeatable across circuits, so next season the flashes of Motegi become the norm rather than the exception. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your Moto GP news update. And see you next time!